Welcome to Intuitive Astrology with Molly McCord. Thank you so much for joining me today as we discuss the astrological energies of October 15th until October 22nd, the final week of Libra season. And we've got a lot going on right now as we move through a Cardinal T-Square that leads us to a Libra New Moon. We also have Mercury conjunct Mars in Scorpio, plus Neptune Retrograde re-enters Pisces and Scorpio season begins. So we're going to cover all of this and more in today's show. But first, I want to start with an opportunity here to reflect back on what has transpired for you in the early degrees of the air signs since early August. Around August 7th or so, Mars in Libra created the first air grand trine with Pluto retrograde in Aquarius and Uranus in Gemini. This was an air grand trine deeply activating the air sign themes of ideas, perceptions, conversations, information, communications, sharing, relationships, what we think about, where our thoughts take us, the power of our mental processing, how the mind is a powerful contributor to our reality. Perception is reality, right? And so when we had this beginning point of the air grand trine back in early August, Mars came through and wanted to amplify and trigger what you could discover in a whole new way, in a whole new light. Now, we then experienced each of the personal planets in early Libra activating the same air grand trine. So Mars started the energy, then Mercury, the Sun, and Venus just this week each interacted in this air grand trine. Plus you can of course throw in the moon, as the moon comes through every 29 days and will be in the early degrees of Libra. So every personal planet moving through the early degrees of Libra experienced this transformational surge of understanding from that Pluto in Aquarius, and then was jolted into new awakenings, liberations, breaking you out of perhaps anything you were locked into or had a limited perception around. Each of these personal planets was being recreated and reformed as well as elevated through this ongoing air grand trine. Again, it started early August and here we are, the middle of October. Over 2 months of this energy flowing and working with air sign themes. So what has changed for you in the past 2 months in the early degrees of the air signs? 0, 1, and 2 degrees. 0, 1, and 2 degrees of Gemini, Libra, and Aquarius. Because this is kickstarting new visions of your life, new dreams that maybe you never thought would be possible, new understandings, bringing in new answers, new information, what you didn't know, what you didn't see, perhaps revealing secrets or what was hidden. Pluto loves to bring that into the collective, to say, look at this. Look at what you didn't see before. Look what was happening behind the scenes. Now, what do you think of the story? Now, how is the story shifting and changing based on these truths? So this would be a great time to reflect upon what has transpired for you because of the air grand trine. And it will be in effect again next September and October. But there's a process that we've been moving through. And I feel that this is part of how the air grand trine is evolving humanity, because Pluto in Aquarius and Uranus in Gemini are in this high-level conversation. This is activating high-level consciousness, more awakenings, more questions even before answers. But then with the personal planets moving through, it is personal. it is working with us, especially in the Libra realms of relationships, partnerships, sharing, how you interact with others, what works for you, what doesn't work for you. All these Libra themes we've been discussing throughout Libra season, well, this is where we are growing. And I feel that there could be some things you now see in hindsight about what the last 2 months have taught you about equal exchanges, being balanced in yourself, being fully balanced in your divine feminine and your divine masculine. Perhaps even feeling that you've reached a state of divine neutrality that beautifully supports you in handling the big seesaw energies on the planet now. So this is important to understand as we move forward here this week, is to acknowledge how much you shifted and evolved because of that air grand trine. And if you have planets or points in those early degrees of the air signs, this is working with you much more personally and more deeply. And I find that it's notable here to recognize that many generations have planets in the early degrees of Libra, whether it's Neptune in Libra, Pluto in Libra, Uranus in Libra, Saturn or Jupiter in Libra. This is changing the trajectory of relationships that you create and invest in, the people you call in, those who are your equals, those who are an energy match, a frequency match. And that's part of how the soul groups are changing right now. So partnerships are changing, and also how new divine unions are happening. That's part of what this air grand trine is supporting. So just keep in mind, this is an ongoing theme. And if you're feeling it, I hope it also is validating to the work you've done, to what you've healed, what you've moved through. And perhaps it's opening you up to all new people who are also on your same frequency and who are a good match for your energy. Now, over this next week, the Sun in Libra is going to make 2 important aspects before the Libra New Moon, which is on October 21st at 28 degrees of Libra. But before we get there, there are pressure points that are coming through that are going to serve a beautiful purpose. Now, the first one occurs on October 16th as the Sun in Libra receives a square from Jupiter in Cancer at 23 degrees. The Sun squaring Jupiter can be an amplification of self, ego, desires, opinions. There can be a surge of energy pushing through that wants to be correct or right. And there can be parts of ourselves that really want to be validated and understood. Sometimes a strong Jupiter can bring in a need to be worshipped, adored, elevated in some manner. So the exaggerations are strong here on October 16th. And again, that Sun in Libra is receiving that square from Jupiter in Cancer, which can bring up how you feel. So needing emotional validation, perhaps feeling like there's a righteousness that's coming through. And that Jupiter in Cancer brings it through the feelings, the emotional body, and a very personal, subjective experience based on something you've been through that has formed your belief systems. That's what Jupiter represents, is what you believe. And so when we have this energy squaring the Sun in Libra, which prefers to stand back, remain an objective observer, wants to think things through, discuss it, isn't interested in being pulled to one side or another, the Sun in Libra can maintain an equilibrium here that is able to see both sides of a story, right? And so there could be someone who's pushing their opinion on you or wants you to follow them or wants you to believe what they're saying, and they bring in all this emotional energy to persuade you or to get you to go a certain way. This could also be something you just feel rising up within, that you're having some strong feelings right now. There's things that are bursting through and you need to express them. But when Jupiter is in a square, especially to the Sun, things can be overdone. There can be too much emotion or too much that comes through. I think that's called emotional flooding. That can show up at this time. And so there could be a need here to go into that Sun in Libra observer and be inquisitive, be curious. What is this about? Where is this coming from? It's coming from the past, which is what Jupiter in Cancer is moving us through. And it's bringing up something for you to see in a new light from a more detached understanding. Now, right after this aspect is exact on October 16th, then the next day, October 17th, that Sun in Libra opposes Chiron retrograde in Aries at 24 degrees, and this is an opposition that happens once a year. This year it's different because the story also involves Jupiter in Cancer, and this is creating that Cardinal T-Square, which I'll get to in just a minute. But first I want to discuss the Sun in Libra opposing Chiron retrograde in Aries, which is something outside of you that could feel more personal or triggered and maybe throws you off balance at first. But that Sun in Libra wants to bring you into balance. I feel that this opposition here between the Chiron retrograde in Aries and the Sun in Libra is bringing up relational dynamics that you're in that haven't been resolved. And there could be something that comes up or comes through that grabs your attention and reveals that it's not settled yet. And when this Jupiter is involved, it can be bigger emotions and more feelings under the surface. Keep in mind that Jupiter in Cancer can hold back a lot. It will hold back, and then all of a sudden the dam breaks and everything comes forward. And so that's part of the trigger warning in this Cardinal T-Square, which again is going to be the most active October 16th and October 17th. This means that there's something within us at a personal level that we're deeply healing, and we're healing it at a core root level, which is how that Chiron in Aries is working. It's revealing where we haven't felt safe, we haven't felt securely rooted on the planet. It could reveal anything around your self-concept, your self-identity, who you are and what you embody in this lifetime. That's because Chiron is working deeply in our self-identity frequency. And this Cardinal T-Square with these three planets in this particular interaction signifies it's time for growth. It's time to bust through something from the past that has been holding you back from being in a more balanced understanding of your life. Both Chiron in Aries and Jupiter in Cancer can be highly personalized experiences, things that were a big deal for you, highly sensitive as well. These are heightened sensitive energies. And maybe they put you on alert. Maybe there's things you've been aware of. And here comes the Sun in Libra asking you to step away from your own experience, move into a divine neutrality, and intellectually consider the best choice to make next. The Sun in Libra will bring up choices. We have choices around everything, right? And so I feel that this Cardinal T-Square is a push forward that could feel like intense pressure. There could be pain involved. It could be something that's very emotional for you, very scary. But there's meant to be a rebirth that occurs. And that's because all three of these planets are in cardinal signs. Cardinal signs initiate and direct the energy in a new way. They are the initiation energies of all 4 seasons in the tropical Western astrology system. They signify that the pressure here is a pressure to grow through the discomfort, but in a kind and loving way, meaning you don't reject how you feel and you don't try to hide from parts of yourself. You also don't minimize the self-identity or any pains, vulnerabilities, or wounds. Rather, these are the parts that can be welcomed forward and loved and accepted as part of a human experience, as catalysts for growth. And I do have to note that this square, the square between Jupiter in Cancer and Chiron in Aries, it continues into early next year. And that's because Jupiter will be stationing retrograde on November 11th, and then travel retrograde with an ongoing square to Chiron in Aries. So it's also important to note that maybe things aren't going to be immediately resolved, that it's going to bring up a healing theme that's right on time, which means there's support for it, and it's asking you to get to the heart of how you really feel and how it's impacted your ability to trust yourself, how it's impacted your ability to trust what you need, who you are, how you feel. And that this is a theme that you're also meant to feel supported around, because that Chiron energy actually needs to ask for help, even though it doesn't want to, especially in Aries. Aries says, I'll handle it. I can do it on my own. I'll figure it out. I'll get on YouTube. I'll get the information. But you can only get so far on your own, because Chiron wants you to understand that it's okay to be vulnerable and to ask for support. And that feels like vulnerability to the Aries energy. But there's something here that you're meant to open up at a heart level and be able to emotionally connect with more of your true self. And this week could be highlighting what that theme is. It also could be pointing the way to who could assist you. That could be part of the Sun in Libra contribution. So yes, it is a pressure point of growth that's meant to initiate new understandings in who you're becoming. I also feel this as a trajectory shift to leave the past behind. Just be done with something. It's over. You don't have to carry it forward. You don't have to keep spinning in it. There's meant to be a new birth that arrives. And maybe that doesn't fully happen for you until January after this square passes. But I think the Cardinal T-Square is going to be that intellectual realization. Any internal or external chaos is the potential of new creation. And it leads us to the Libra New Moon on October 21st. So this Cardinal T-Square is making it more evident where you're out of balance and where to set a new intention with the new moon that elevates you based on wisdom, based on lived experiences. And when we have a new moon at 28 degrees of a sign, it's occurring at the end of that season. So we are closing out Libra season, and here we have a new moon. Well, this is a trend that's going to continue into 2026 with new moons at the late degrees of each sign. And so that means we are learning and experiencing some things that bring us to new conclusions. And those new conclusions shape and form exactly the higher intention to put energy towards. So if you have felt like you've been in training wheels of some kind, or that there's been so much happening, especially since that Virgo solar eclipse back on September 21, it's all guiding you to what you really want to invest in Libra energies from a mature, balanced perspective. And so I feel that this Libra new moon on October 21st is also going to signal what you're cutting off, what you are complete with, what you're done with, what no longer fits. You've learned those lessons. You've been through that experience. You've had that understanding of relationships, partnerships, one-on-one dynamics, and you've grown through them. And so what are you declaring now that you require? I think there's going to be new standards in place here that people are really feeling about how they interact with others, what they need, what they want. And many of you could be the ones who are establishing those high standards that other people can't match. They just can't meet them. They're just not there yet. And you realize, yeah, I don't have much to give to this. I don't have anything to contribute right now because we're not on the same playing field. And I think that's going to be part of what comes about with the Libra new moon, is that you're going to see where there are these big gaps in connections, like a big gap in relational needs and communication styles. You're going to see if you're further along or if there's too much space, too much differences between you and another. The Libra energy also brings up comparison. And so we talk a lot about Libra as collaboration and connections, but it's also comparison. And you could find that you are assessing through thoughtful analysis some things, and maybe you're comparing this or that. And if it has you spinning to the point where you can't draw a final conclusion, then you'd want to go deeper and to look at what you're not trusting in yourself, what you're not trusting in what you need. Because the strong Libra energy can keep us in a mental space, but this Cardinal T-Square that I've just touched on is pulling you back into yourself. Maybe part of what you're realizing is how you need to ask for what you need in relationships. And that feels vulnerable or that feels scary. Maybe that's a pattern you're busting through and you're learning how to fully own who you are and what you need more in your dynamics. This can also be in business relationships where you're aware of what you bring to the table and what you need in return. And if that isn't available, if that isn't given, then perhaps it's time to move on. It's time to leave that relationship and that business interaction behind. So I think that part of what we're moving through this week relates to deeper realizations around what qualifies as good connections, quality relationships, and not trying to keep the peace at your own expense or sacrificing what you need or who you are. And perhaps this Libra new moon is going to bring you to some really fascinating self-observations. So the last decan of Libra is going to be active this week as the sun moves through the final 10 degrees of the sign, but specifically gets activated starting at 23 degrees of Libra until 28 degrees of Libra, which is where that new moon is. So you want to identify the house where you have 23 to 28 degrees of Libra. The house placement is where the themes of life show up during Libra season. This is an area of your chart where you're meant to have more balance in your life. You're meant to check in and ensure that the reciprocity is there, the conversations are there, that you're able to make some good decisions that serve what you need as well as what other people need. All of that is going to be very strong right now. And so you could feel that there's more you have to say, more that you have to express. And that brings me to another transit that's going on this week as well. Now, it's exact on October 19th, which is 2 days before the Libra new moon that we've been discussing. But this is an aspect that will linger over a few days. And it's Mercury conjunct Mars at 18 degrees of Scorpio. Mars is strong here in Scorpio, a sign that it co-rules. And Mars in Scorpio is very determined, passionate, strategic, and stealth. Mars in any of the fixed signs will stay with something until it gets what it wants. But here in Scorpio, this Mars is driven by very deep urges. There can be this ruthless emotional expression with Mars in Scorpio. There can be financial motivations, the desire to accumulate and acquire what someone else has or what this Mars really wants to possess. This Mars in Scorpio will face anything, and it has a desire to go deep, especially in the underworld, to understand more of what's happening within one's psyche or psychology, what motivates you, what inspires you to get ahead. This Mars in Scorpio can have hidden goals and be quite clandestine in how it operates. So then you bring in Mercury in Scorpio, which is going to say exactly what one thinks and potentially not hold back. Now that's one expression here of this Mars conjunct Mercury, is that there can be a lot of energy in the body, in the throat chakra, and in the mind, because they're all in sync here in Scorpio. There is a big drive. This is powerful and fierce. And in Scorpio, it plays out on a spectrum of either having very determined convictions. I'm going to get what I want. I'm going to research it, investigate it, get all the details, all the facts. No stone is left unturned. This is the deep dive here of getting to the heart and truth of something. And so when the intention is pure, then this is a conjunction between Mercury and Mars that can make some big moves, get really far ahead, and be very transformative, really evolve some things, help you bust through fears, move through blockages. It's where you declare, I'm not going to be limited. I'm not going to be held back. I'm going to transform anything that presents itself into gold of some kind, I'm going to move through it. And so that's the higher octave of this Mars conjunct Mercury. Now, the lower octave can be very evil and sinister, manipulative, using lies, scams, control, power dynamics, all of that to get ahead. And so that's the seedy underside of this conjunction with Mercury conjunct Mars in Scorpio, is that people are not telling the truth at all, and they're trying to make moves and get ahead because of it. And so the best way to work with this energy is to trust what you feel, to trust when something feels off, when your intuition is bringing about red flags, red flags, red flags, when you're seeing like something isn't in alignment and it feels like there's more going on that's hidden below the surface, perhaps very dark and shadowy as well. So we're learning to navigate here based on our feelings and allowing our emotional wisdom and intuitive guidance systems to tell us what feels true and what resonates, as well as what doesn't. You could find that mentally you're heavily fixated on something, that you've got to do it. You've got to do the thing. You've got to take it forward. You've got to get it done. That fixation energy is strong when Mercury and Mars are conjunct in a fixed sign. And so you might see that you have a laser focus right now. It's very passionate, very driven. You can't be steered off course, and you won't stop until you get to where you need to go. So you may notice this in yourself. You might notice this in others too. Sort of like when you go and you knock on someone's office door and you wonder if they have a minute to talk, and they're like, no, can't do it right now. I'm heavily invested in something. I've got a project deadline. I got to get this done. You might sense that people are just really in something at the moment. It's not a great time to disturb them because they don't want to be disturbed. So that is part of this energy signature as well. And it is exact again at 18 degrees of Scorpio on October 19th. And it will be in effect into next week as Mercury and Mars still continue to travel within a few degrees together past the October 21st Libra New Moon. This is not diplomatic energy either. So even though we're in the final week of Libra season with the Sun in Libra and Venus in Libra, these are the energies of being agreeable, charismatic, social, engaging, and charming. When we have the two planets conjunct in Scorpio, there are definitely strong thoughts, strong convictions, strong opinions. And it means that a conversation you thought might be simple or easy could take a turn and could turn into something much more intense, divisive, and even difficult. So do keep that in mind this week, that you might find it's better to bite your tongue and hold back on some things rather than put it all out there, because there is a lot more going on under the surface in our psyches as we move through more of what we're really feeling and sensing that perhaps is best kept to yourself at times, especially if it's something really important to you. Now, October 22nd moves us into greater water energy as we will have Neptune retrograde re-enter Pisces at 5:48 a.m., that's Eastern Time. And then later that same day, the Sun enters Scorpio at 11:51 p.m. Eastern Time. So for some, that could be the start of Scorpio season on October 23rd. So Neptune returns to his home sign of Pisces and re-enters into the depths of our unconscious, bringing us into more of what we are collectively clearing out after seeing the new potentials and beginnings of Neptune moving into Aries. That started the end of March of this year. So we had about 6 months of Neptune in Aries, providing a preview of powerful new beginning points on the planet, as well as within ourselves, connecting to a new dream of what we can create in our lives, opening up to new chapters, new adventures, new parts of ourselves that we can actively experience by trusting our intuition, our creativity, and our imagination. This Neptune in Aries signifies we're in for a very big new chapter that will start start in early 2026. But before we can fully go into that, then we need to clear out what still remains here at the final degree of the zodiac, which is 29 degrees of Pisces. So Neptune returning to 29 degrees of Pisces signifies big endings are in motion. We can already feel that and sense that. That also relates directly to the ocean, the movement of the ocean, the tides, the water level, the shifts and flooding. Now, there have been some really damaging flood events that have happened lately. From a typhoon, it's been a really quiet hurricane season in the Gulf and the Atlantic, the quietest hurricane season in at least 10 years. Which is a welcome relief after last year's intense hurricanes. But Neptune re-entering Pisces means that there are still going to be some significant weather events, water events, and those shifts and movements of water that are going to be moving around the planet. So I do think there's going to be more flooding, more devastation, maybe more extremes in the ocean movements. There can certainly be more extremes in the weather in general, in temperatures, snowfall, ice melting, all of that. So even though Neptune is in Pisces only until January 26th, 2026, I do think that over the course of these next number of months, we're going to have some record-setting events. Now, the other thing I wanted to touch on about Neptune is how Neptune directly relates to pharmaceuticals, how Neptune in Pisces especially relates to drugs, pharmaceuticals, mental health, the opioid crisis, fentanyl, and the increase in legalizing marijuana, specifically here in the States. But Neptune also relates directly to what you can get a prescription for, and it's made me think about the increase in the GLP-1s, Ozempic, Zepbound, all those drugs that have recently become a craze. Now, they've been around for decades, but it's interesting that when Neptune moved into Aries, Aries brings things forward out into the open. Aries also rules the body, our physical selves, and how we feel about being in our bodies. I was observing how there was an increase in options for GLP-1s, and that it's something that many people are experimenting with and trying for whatever reason is right for them. But these are readily available and accessible medications that don't require a prescription. You can order them online without a doctor's authorization, especially for weight loss. And I think it's a beautiful example of this Neptune in Aries, because Neptune is literally about loss. So here you have it applied to weight loss and how that reshapes and reforms the body. Of course, there are side effects. And to be clear, I am not advertising this medication and I'm not promoting it in any way. I'm using it as an astrological case study that when you examine drugs like Ozempic through the lens of astrology, with Neptune re-entering Pisces and with Saturn in Pisces, there's things we don't know yet about the consequences and the long-term effects. And when we have Saturn and Neptune conjunct again in February, when they are conjunct at 0 degrees of Aries, there's going to be new information that comes forth, new evidence, new documentation, new terms and conditions. And you could relate it specifically to this case study of the GLP-1s, where then we're going to see more about how this really affects the body. Is it good for long-term use? Is it beneficial as a long-term weight loss plan? And I realize there's already documentation and evidence out there, but I'm saying there's still things in motion right now with this astrology. And I think it's going to be interesting to see what comes about specifically in February. So I think this is relevant because Neptune returning to Pisces means there's still answers we don't have. There's information we don't know. There's things that aren't fully presented yet. But we are going to have more guidance and understanding after Saturn and Neptune re-enter Aries in early 2026 and stay there. There could be new rules, new laws, new regulations, because that is Saturn's domain. So Saturn is working to regulate, standardize, and improve new parts of our reality that are still in motion, that are still being figured out. So this would be an example of one industry to watch. And you can relate it to any areas of life that have promoted escapism, especially unhealthy, unconscious patterns that remove you from reality at your own expense, meaning it brings about some dire consequences, rough hangovers, unintentional results. Neptune in Pisces is bringing us back into the space to look at, does this really serve me? Are my habits and patterns really guiding me to a new elevated way of living? Or is it sinking my energy? Is it pulling me back? Is it disrupting my sleep, affecting my mental health, not allowing me to fully function the next day where my body feels weak or really heavy? Are there things in my life that I used to enjoy, I used to look forward to, and now I don't? Now it doesn't feel as good. It doesn't offer that same sense of joy or peace. Rather, it's more stressful, or it's not something that truly serves my energy. I think we're going to be reevaluating how we unwind and decompress, how we relax and detach. We're going to be more aware of how it serves your energy or not. You might realize there's things you've always done and you don't want to do it anymore. You're not interested in that former approach or former habit, whatever it may be, because it's not guiding you to a new beginning or start that you truly want. So we're going to have some things in our lives that we truly step away from and cut out, that we're going to understand no longer serves our higher frequencies. 29 degrees of Pisces is a point of enlightenment. It's a point of ascending up to that next level. And so Neptune might be giving you some intuitive messages and downloads about what that is for you. Might ask you to sit with something, really feel into it, and trust where your energy rises and where it sinks. So this could be something that you notice unfolding over this next week. And again, especially as Neptune retrograde re-enters Pisces on October 22nd. I'm going to talk about that more on next Wednesday's episode, as well as the Sun entering Scorpio on the same day. So we will cover that on October 22nd. In the meantime, I wanted to make sure and discuss some of these final big transits that close out Libra season. I do have a video for you on YouTube that goes through the Libra New Moon astrology chart. That's where I decipher more of the aspects that are happening, more things to look at and understand, as well as how to make the most of setting a new intention here in the late degrees of Libra. The importance of it coming from a mature, wise place within yourself, because that's what's going to stick. That's what we're ready for, and that's what our souls are guiding us to. Now, one more thing to share with you before I close out today's show, and that's if you are already planning your 2026 calendar, I wanted to put it in your awareness that I will be a part of a Sedona Ascension Retreat during the Aries equinox, March 20th to March 22nd in Sedona, Arizona, which will feature a variety of presenters, speakers, teachers, and channelers helping us connect more fully to the frequencies of unconditional love. The event begins on Friday, March 20th and lasts until Sunday, March 22nd, and will feature many main stage presentations, including Daryl Anka, who channels Bashar, Daniel Sheehan, Chris Bledsoe, William Henry, Yannicka from Wisdom of North, Sarah Breskman-Cosme from QHHT, and many more renowned experts and speakers who are gathering together to help you ignite more advanced gifts and abilities in these new frequencies. The 3-day event will be held at the Sedona Performing Arts Center, and there are different levels of passes depending on what works for you, what you want to attend and experience. There are also outdoor journeys and sky watches that will be available to schedule and experience. Plus, I wanted to share that there are also vendor booths and tables available, as well as ads in the program guide and sponsor spaces still available. So if you are looking to advertise, if these are your people and you want to be at a vendor booth in Sedona at this event in March, do check that out as well. So I will put all this information below in the podcast description. Yes, I will be on stage as a main stage presenter right before Bashar. discussing more about the galactic astrology of our times, the big energies that are coming through over the next few years, and how to be the galactic love glitch, how to be the one who's different, who stands out, who fully owns more about your authentic spark, because that is so beautifully supported in this cycle. Now, I do have to note that I am not in charge of this retreat. I am a guest speaker. So any questions you might have will be on the website, or you can reach out to the event organizers for more specifics. It's called the Sedona Ascension Retreat, and it does sell out every year. So that's why I'm sharing it with you now in October, in case this is something you're interested in and you'd like to be in the community during this very high vibrational gathering. March 20th to March 22nd. Again, I'll put the details below in the podcast show description. So as always, wishing you a beautiful week ahead. I hope that this Libra new moon brings you some beautiful insights and intentions. And I'll be back every Monday and Wednesday with a new podcast episode. I'm looking forward to Monday's show because we're going to dive into an ongoing, powerful water grand trine that will be starting next week. So we'll discuss that in Monday's show. Have a beautiful week ahead, and I'll see you back here soon.